Welcome everyone to Lavender Lane Wellness Center's webinar series. I'm Christine Goss, co-owner of Lavender Lane. And today we're going to have Marilyn Mayberry speaking for us. Marilyn is a board-certified master practitioner and coach of NLP, neuro-linguistics programming, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. And she's a practitioner of the quantum change process. She's also a certified yoga teacher, Reiki master trainer, and master in the energetic sciences. She's a gifted leader in transformative change. Tingling with energy and an adventurous, loving spirit, Marilyn connects with people of all walks of life and takes them on a passionate and exciting journey in self-discovery. Marilyn serves her clients through training programs, individual coaching sessions, and 6-week breakthrough coaching programs in any area of your life that you want to transform. And these sessions are available online. So welcome, Marilyn, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Christine. And one thing, if you have a pen and paper available, there is going to be times where we're going to do a few exercises. This is going to be an experiential workshop, and there's sometimes you're going to want to jot some things down. So feel free to grab a pen and paper. I am just wondering how many of you are feeling a little bit of stress in your life as this is going on, and how many would like to feel a little more peace and a little more calm and maybe understand what's going on inside of your body neurologically, physically, mentally, and emotionally. That is what this workshop is going to be about today, about gaining knowledge and then walking away with actual steps that you can take, tools that you can use to help shift that state that you're in to get you where you want to go. So thank you so much for joining me. And just to add a little bit more of what is in this for you, as I mentioned, you'll walk away with these steps and these tools, but you'll also be able to use it interacting in your life. For me, why I use these tools and why I'm so passionate about this topic is because I was dealing with a lot of depression when I was younger. I lived in a family with an alcoholic father, and my parents fought all the time. And in my teens, I was bullied for my looks. And the default pattern became I'm ugly because of what I experienced throughout most of my high school days. And so I hated this feeling of pain inside. I just wanted it to stop. And I started to look for ways to find healthier avenues rather than codependency on alcohol or drugs. And this is what started first bringing me into yoga. And then it just exploded from there, energetic work, mindset work. And so I'm happy to share this with you today. So what is showing up in your life right now because of the pandemic? Hang on, it's not changing for me. There we go. Are you going a little stir crazy? You may be feeling a little lonely, not being able to connect with people, especially if you're a kinesthetic person and you love connection, hugs, and touch. You may be feeling a little stressed or anxious. You may find you're worried about money, feeling tired or even exhausted, having trouble getting out of bed. I can definitely say that there's days where this first started that it was challenging for me to get out of bed. I didn't want to get dressed. Today I had to do a wardrobe change because I was teaching yoga before I did this. So I'm getting out of my PJs. How are you coping with the stress of this situation? Where is your stress level on the meter right now? So as you look at this meter, I want you to take a moment. Is your stress low in this moment? Is it moderate? Is it high? Or is your stress maxed out? And just take note of that. Are you consumed with negative social media? Not just social media, possibly being exposed to negative people and what's showing up and people around you with how they're dealing with things. So what is showing up in your life right now because of this pandemic? Maybe I've hit on a few points for you, but maybe there's some other things that are going on in your life. You may be finding it hard to be productive and wondering when will this end and feeling unfocused. Right. You all have strategies to cope with stressors, whether you know it or not. You may be experiencing one of these 4 stress responses: fight, flight, freeze, or appease. Now, to understand these responses, are you physically fighting back, verbally fighting back, resisting? If you have children, they could be kicking or screaming or having tantrums. They may be fighting with your siblings. So I want you to take a moment, and if you've got that pen and paper, as I just shift this presentation slightly, I want you just to take a moment and write down in areas where you might be fighting, where you might be in the flight mode, in the freeze mode, or appease, as I shift this for you. And take some deep breaths as you're going through and noticing. Just having some technical difficulties with my presentation. The presentation that I saved, there we go. Okay. Sure. Almost there. Okay. So with the flight mode, you may find that you're sleeping a lot. You may be consuming substances like alcohol, drugs, eating excessively, isolating yourself from others by not talking on the phone or virtually, not reacting with others, or consuming social media all the time. You could be also binge watching. So just notice if any of those are what's showing up for you. Now, as you see, the caveman here in the freeze, the dinosaurs coming back in the caveman days, you freeze because you're panicked and you don't know what to do. Well, we still have those things showing up for us. You may find it difficult to get out of bed. You could be feeling at times hopeless. You don't want to eat. You don't feel like doing anything. For my daughter, it's starting to shift or change, but she went into that hopeless feeling, and when is this going to end? And she stopped eating, and it really started to shut down. She was going into that freeze mode. For some of you, might be even afraid to go out for groceries or even do social distancing. Now with the appease mode, this cute little clip here is, you looked kinder with your mask on, Chiefy. Work some men knee on a block. I read Chiefy's evil mind. He plans to appease the fire gods by throwing us into the volcano so it won't erupt. I just thought that was a funny way to demonstrating it. So you might be appeasing by telling someone what they want to hear. So it may not be something that you actually are congruent with. You feel a different way, but you're appeasing them by telling them what they want to hear so that they feel better and taking care of others. So just noticing what ones have been showing up for you. For me, at the beginning, what showed up for me is the first 2 days were fine. And then the next 6 days, I actually slipped into the flight response. And that's when I didn't want to get out of bed, and I was feeling exhausted, and I was sleeping a lot. And then I started binge watching stuff and eating. I've gained some weight over these last several weeks. And once I started to notice what was going on, then I started to take shifts and put into place the tools that, some of the tools that you're going to learn today, so that I could get myself out of that response. It's a physiological reaction in your body, the flight, fight, freeze, and appease. It's triggered by a threat, in this case, the virus, and it prepares the body to react effectively to the perceived situation. In evolutionary psychology, the flight or flight response is an example of how you adapt to the situation you are experiencing. The fight or flight response is a trigger by the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is when you're getting ready to react, and your body is starting to produce adrenaline to be able to react to that situation. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is when the system starts to relax the body, and it starts to inhibit or slow many high energy functions down. So that's when you go into the freeze and the appease. It triggers your adrenal glands releasing cortisol, and the flight or flight response is a short-term stressor that activates the amygdala of the brain. So we're going to do an exercise here. With this exercise, you need a little bit of space so that you can move around. And I'm going to adjust myself, hopefully, so that you can see me. So with this exercise, you want to stand up. And all right. And I want you to think of that first one, the fight response. In the fight response, I want you to get into a position where it's like you're ready to fight. I want you to feel it in your body, and you're ready to fight. Maybe even start to do a few punches. You're ready to fight. You're ready to take on this virus, and feel that in your body. Notice how you stand in your body when you go into fight mode. You become a little more rigid. So now, and again, you've blanked out your screen, so no one can see you. So just have a little bit of fun with this. I want you to really feel this in your body. So with the flight response, what do? You run away. So I want you to run away. You're running away from this virus right now. So just play with me, moving away, whether it's a quick walk or a run. Notice how that feels differently from the energy of that fight response to the flight response. Now, think about the freeze, and just freeze in your body. Just stare out without moving. Everything becomes still. The body becomes a little more rigid as you freeze, and notice how that feels. Now, switch it to appease. Oh, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Oh, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Notice how the body becomes softer. Maybe you're reaching out. If you're kinesthetic, you might be placing your hands on that person. So again, the fight, bring yourself into that flight response. Feel that in your body. Flight. Notice how that feels. Freeze. And appease. So now I want you to take it into sadness in your physiology. If you're feeling sad, maybe you're closing in, maybe you're protecting yourself with your arms around you. And actually do this so that you can feel this in your body. Maybe you're dropping your head down slightly and you're feeling sadness. Now, what does it feel like in your body to be happy? Imagine that you're going to meet someone. Oh my God, Christine, I haven't seen you in so many years. I'm so happy to see you. It is so good to see you. I can't wait to catch up. Again, the body starts to relax and the body becomes a little bit bigger, more expansive. Now, to take it one step further, I want you to imagine that you've met a long lost friend that you haven't seen for years, and you are like so super excited to see them, that you're just blowing off the charts. Oh my God, Christine, I'm so excited to see you. It's been so long. How is it going? Oh my God, do you have any kids? Are you married? What is going on? So a completely different experience from happy to sad. from fighting to flighting to freezing to appeasing. So just notice how that feels in your body as you grab a seat again. And if you got up and played at 100%, thank you so much for joining in and actually feeling that in your body. Okay. And maybe take a few breaths. I got a little winded there. When we, let me backtrack here. With the flight, the fight, the freeze, and the appease. This is a temporary reaction. But the problem is that we fall into a default pattern and we can get stuck. And we can get stuck on that hamster wheel where it's going around and around and around. And we're asking yourself, how can I get off of this? How can I make this stop? I don't want to feel this way anymore. So when we're managing our emotional state, everything is in balance. We have the left brain, which is the logical mind, and we have the right brain, which is the emotional mind. And when these two are in balance, we have what is called the wise mind. Now, what happens is when we get a trigger response of flight, fight, freeze, or appease, the amygdala in the brain gets activated. And when the amygdala in the brain gets activated, our emotions go up and our logical mind goes down. So when the emotions go up and the logical mind goes down, what happens is we no longer can think logically. What might be possible when we're balanced is no longer possible because we can't see a way out. So we need to learn tools to bring ourselves back into balance where the left and the right brain are now activating the wise mind. Okay? How do you show up with people and for people? How do you manage your emotional state? How do you balance the mind when you become emotionally flooded? When you become emotionally flooded, you need to rewire your neurological default habits or patterns. What you need to do is create a pattern interrupt by creating a state change. So when you notice that something's off and you're in this pattern and you want to change it, you need to create a pattern interrupt. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. So do you want something to change, but you're doing the same pattern over and over again and thinking, why is this not changing? It's because you need to actually interrupt that pattern, create a state change in order for things to start to change. Now, when you create that pattern interrupt and that state change, it creates a new neurological pattern. But the mind, body, and energy is used to that old neurological pattern. It's like the comfort zone. When you have your comfort zone and you stretch your comfort zone, and all of a sudden, boom, you snap right back. It's because you've just opened yourself up to new neurology, and then you snap back. The thing is, you need to practice it so that you can continually stretch that neurology, stretch that neurology, stretch that neurology, and all of a sudden, it changes. Now, you may find that you start to default back, but just for a moment, and then you go back into that new neurology because you're practicing it over and over again. It's just like if you're practicing yoga or going to the gym. In order to get strong muscles, you need to keep lifting those weights. Well, it's the same when you want to change the neurology in your body, physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. When you want to change that neurology, you have to practice. You have to create that pattern interrupt, that state change, and then you have to practice, 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 so that your body starts to default, your mind, your energy starts to default to that new strategy, that new pattern. What can you do or not do that is different from what you're doing or not doing now? Let me say that again. What can you do or not do that is different from what you're doing or not doing now? So let me put it another way. Actually, let's first do a exercise to create a state change, and then I'll take it even further. So learning state, some of you may have experienced that on Friday with Kim. We're going to go over that again. When we're in learning state and full view vision, we're looking straight ahead. And in learning state, what it does is it expands into our peripheral vision and takes us all the way around. So when we're emotionally flooded, we can only see straight ahead. We have that central vision, that foveal vision that goes straight ahead, and we can't see other possibilities that could be right beside us. We just didn't realize it. So what we want to do is we want to increase our vision and peripherally take it further, which is going to create a state change, a pattern interrupt. So for a moment, get comfortable, nice tall spine. You're going to look straight ahead, and keeping your head in a neutral position, I just want your eyes to look slightly off your wall there and just find a spot on the wall. Because when we're in an emotional state, the other thing that happens when we're in our feelings is our eyes go down. So we're going to allow the eyes to look up and just focus on that spot for a moment. And as you're focusing on that spot, just notice your breath. Notice the things that you can see in front of you. And now, as you're breathing nice and slow in and out through the nose, start to expand your vision. As you take your vision out to the sides, noticing what you can see in your room. Now I want you to expand it even further. As you take it to your sides further back, as you start to wrap it behind you, you know what's there. Start to create that in your mind. I know that I've got 2 screens behind me, and I've got my chakra system directly behind me. And I can even see what you don't know is the mess behind the screens. So just expand that vision all the way around until you come right back behind you. Great. Now as you breathe into that, notice your breath again. Notice your body temperature. You may notice that your heart rate has started to slow just a little bit. Maybe you feel just a little more relaxed. Good. And then bring your vision back into the room. So this is another strategy to create a state change. So if you've gone into that state where you're emotionally flooded and your logical mind has dropped, you can simply go into learning state. A great way to use this with your children, if you have children, is simply to put your hand above them. You can snap your fingers, look at my fingers, look at my fingers, look at my fingers, take some deep breaths, and that is going to trigger them coming out of their feelings. They're stuck, they're in their emotions, and bringing them out and breathing into that, allowing them to start to calm down and allowing their logical mind to start to come up a little bit and their emotional mind to start to drop a bit so that you can actually communicate with them. Because I know when my daughter goes into that state, she's like logic is completely down and she's freaking out. She won't listen to me. She can't hear anything that I have to say. So I'm giving her a visual, I'm giving her an audio as well, so that she can change how she's feeling and she can start to regulate just a little bit. All right. Responsibility, and I spelt it that way on purpose. What is your ability to respond? So what is your ability to respond to what is showing up for you? Again, are you using the definition of insanity and continuing to do the same thing over and over again? Or are you acknowledging that you want something to shift and change? And what is your ability to respond to that? If you are looking for someone else to fix you, it will be temporary because it comes from within. So tell me, what is your ability to respond differently to the situation? I'm going to explain that in another way. If you have ever heard of the towards and away wall, when you're moving towards what you want, kind of looks like this young lady here. You feel energized, you feel excited, you feel passionate. You're moving in a direction towards what you want in life. It feels good, you feel open, and you feel expansive. Now, there's also the opposite, the away wall. Now, with the away wall, when you're moving in the direction of the away wall, it can feel overwhelming, like all of this stuff that's surrounding here. You can feel emotionally flooded. You can feel trapped. You can feel stuck. When you're in that direction of the away wall, you feel resistance. You're like, why isn't this changing? And you may notice that your words can be very negative in the direction that you don't want. Why is this still happening? When is it going to change? What is going to be different? I'm sick of this. I want something to change. What are you doing? What is your responsibility, your ability to respond differently in a situation? First, you just need to acknowledge what's showing up. For me, when this started showing up, at first, I went into that flight mode. I started to shut down and I was starting to feel overwhelmed and I didn't know how to get myself out. And I was doing my same pattern over again, which is very familiar to me. Once I went through that grieving process of that shift and that change, which always happens with me when I'm experiencing something, a big shift or change or different. I go through that grieving process. Once I moved through that grieving process, I noticed that I was stuck in my old pattern. I was on that treadmill and I was heading towards that away wall. And I thought, okay, what do I need to do differently so that I can move in the direction of the towards wall? I started to do meditation. I started to do yoga. I started to read my positive books that I did. And I started to do webinars with people that were giving me tools to help me move through it and helping me remember some of the things that I already knew. I wanted to attract something different in my life, so I had to shift and change my pattern. First, you need to acknowledge that you have a problem you want to change. So again, if you're stuck in that same place and not doing anything differently, nothing's going to change. So you need to bring awareness to what's showing up for you. Then you need to take some action. So you need to have the courage to be able to do something differently. And then rinse and repeat. In order to override that old neurology, you need to continue to do it again, do it again, do it again. One thing that tends to happen is when we get stuck towards the away wall, it becomes very overwhelming and we're looking at the huge picture and we can't see a solution. The key is that you just need to move a tiny bit. So if you look at this ship here, in order to get this boat moving, you need to lift the anchor off the bottom and bring it onto deck. But what most people think is that we have to take it all up onto the deck right away. All you need to simply do is lift that anchor 1 inch. And when you lift that anchor 1 inch, the boat starts to move. So if you can just focus on whatever it is that your next step is and do that, then you're going to start to create momentum. So when you take that one step, that 1 inch, you start to shift. And then when you start to shift, then you take another. Instead of trying to figure out all the steps in front, instead of trying to take that anchor right up on top of the boat right away, Allow yourself to just take one step. Think of it this way. If you were running a race, and say a 10-kilometer race, would you just show up on the start line and boom, run the race without taking a step to get you stronger, to get you healthier, to get you prepared to run this race? A lot of times in our mind, we want to go from the start to the finish without everything in between. We need to take that first step, and once we take that first step, then we can take another step. So what are you paying attention to? What is your pain? Are you paying attention to how you are responding and dealing with your life? Or are you stuck on the hamster wheel in your pain, stuck walking towards that away wall? Or maybe you're plastered right up against that away wall. Or have you pivoted and turned yourself around and you're starting to move towards the towards wall? So before we cap, we're going to do another exercise, another strategy to allow yourselves to pattern interrupt. This is using energy, this is using breath, this is using movement. So if you've joined me in yoga class, you've done this before and you're familiar with it. It's called the breath of joy. So allow yourselves to come on up to standing. You need space to be able to move your arms up, out, up, and down. Now, to get the most benefit and really get yourself recharged and focused, you want to breathe as deeply and exhale as much as you can. When you're exhaling, you're releasing, you're letting go of all that pent-up energy, of all that resistance. You're just letting it go. So your breath is in, and out. You may find that you get a little lightheaded. If so, just slow the breath down. But if you can speed it up while we're doing this and go as fast as you can, give me 110%. Allow yourselves to do that. And if you lose coordination with the arms, just flail them anyway. That's all fine and good. Let's begin. A few more times. One more. Close those eyes, ground those feet in. Breathe in and out through your nose. Taking some nice, deep, slow breaths now. As you breathe in and out, just notice how you feel. You may notice some tingling. You may notice you feel a little lighter. If there was any heaviness in your body, has that shifted? Has that changed? Good. And now allow yourselves to come back to seated. So recapping, when you have high emotions, your logical reasoning drops. And in order to get that back into balance, you need to create a state change. You need to pattern interrupt what is going on with you. So what pain is showing up and what are you paying attention to? Where our focus goes, it expands. So when we focus on something like the away wall over and over again, that's going to expand. But when we can pivot and shift ourselves towards the towards wall, then that will start to shift and that will start to expand and we'll start to experience new experiences. You have to acknowledge you are moving towards the away wall. You're in resistance. So a big trigger is as soon as you notice that you're feeling resistance or someone said something or sent you an email and it triggered a pain response, a reaction, immediately in that moment, you're facing that away wall. And so take a breath, acknowledge what's showing up, and what can you do differently, and how you respond and how you react. What tools do you have now? Which I've given you 3 different ones that you can use. There's many more, but you only have an hour. So I've given you 3 simple ones that you can use in your everyday life. And with the breath of joy, if you're somewhere where you can't do the movement, say for example, you want to do it when you were driving, as long as you don't start to get lightheaded, you can simply do the breath. It's and that's something you can also do to change your energy just simply by lying down. If you've done yoga with me, lie down in Shavasana, whether it's on your bed or not, and just practicing that breath. And if there's resistance in the body, it might start to expand for a little bit because it's starting to break that neurology and that resistance up in your body. And allow yourselves to ride that wave and continue through. So you acknowledge you are moving towards the away wall, you're in resistance, and I need to do something differently. I need to pattern interrupt. And then take action to interrupt that pattern. So the key is you may not acknowledge what's showing up, but then if you don't take action to pivot yourself towards the wall, then nothing's going to change and you're going to stay in that old neurology. So you actually have to do it. You have to take action and allow yourself to change. Now, if we're in physical pain, we can go to actually, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, energetic, we can go to different practitioners to help us, which can put a Band-Aid on what we're doing unless we do the follow-up work that they're giving us. So if you're going to physio and they give you exercises to do, if you want to help the change happen and have a healthy, happy body, continue to do those exercises that they gave you. If someone's giving you mindset work, do those exercises. If it's energetic work, shifting your energy, which the ones that I've shown you shifts your energy, it changes your physiology, and it also changes your state of mind. Because when you're doing those exercises, you're no longer in your monkey mind, you're no longer in your story, and you're focusing on what is happening. And that's why exercise is so good, because we start to move, we get going, and we are no longer in our monkey mind. Everybody experiences things differently. So some people love to run. Some people like to go swimming. My thing is, as long as you're in some kind of movement, whatever that is for you, rather than being stuck as a couch potato on your couch or in your bed, then things are going to start to shift and change. Acknowledge you have a problem you want to change. 2, take an action step. 3, rinse and repeat. And remember that you must continue to rinse and repeat to expand that neurology so that you now can actually live in that new neurology. Okay. The 3 strategies to change your state that we worked on today was, first, change your physiology. So hero's pose. We're going to go back to those movements that we did earlier. I'm going to get everybody to stand up for a moment. So we went into different states. We went into flight. We went fight. We went into flight. We went into freeze. We went into appease. And then we also did sadness, happiness, and excited. So now standing nice and tall and bringing your hands on your hips. Lift your rib cage, lengthen through your spine. And same eyes as learning state, eyes focusing slightly up, and breathe into it. Imagine that your feet have tree roots, and inhale, drawing that energy up through your feet, all the way to the crown of your head. And then as you exhale, all the way down your body, down your tree roots, grounding you down to the earth, straight down to the core of the earth, right down to the core crystal. Inhaling energy up and exhaling down, changing your physiology from sadness, from freezing, from being shut down in resistance, and opening yourselves up, changing your physiology, your energy, and your state of mind. Next is your learning state, which again is expanding your foveal vision, eyes, head staying neutral, eyes gazing up, and then expanding that vision all the way around to your sides, and then envisioning what's behind you and wrapping it all the way around behind you. Breathing into that, taking nice, deep, full, calm breaths. That's something that you can do anytime during the day. It can be done several times during the day to bring yourselves back to your wise mind, balancing your emotional and your logical. And then third, take one action step, which could be the breath of joy. It could be simply taking a bath. For me, especially when around this time, I'm a very kinetic person and I love touch and connection. And my daughter is more visual and she shuts down and doesn't want to hug. So for me, having a nice hot bath, the water is basically giving me a nice warm hug. And so it feels nurturing to me. So sometimes that needs to be my first action step. I nurture myself, I take care of myself. And then maybe coming out of it, my next action step is the breath of joy, raising my vibration so that I can get back in sync and I can get congruent with the direction I want to be in and moving towards wall. There's many little steps that you can take. You just have to figure out what is the next step for you and bring yourself out of overwhelm down to that 1 inch, lifting that anchor 1 inch off the seabed floor in a direction where you want to go. But you have to remember, it's up to you to get off that hamster wheel. It's up to you to change the insanity that you may be running and change your pattern, pivot from the away wall to the towards wall. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. Know that we are recording this and that if you prefer not to be on the recording, just let us know and we will pause the recording. But I'd like you to just, if you have any questions, to feel free to bring them up and we can work through those, or an example that you may have noticed that you're running on the treadmill with in your life. So I'm going to unmute everyone now. And some of you still stayed on mute. If you're on mute and you want to share, feel free to just click unmute. So does anybody have any questions or notice any patterns that you want to interrupt in your life?
I find myself, I'm sleeping in and then I can't go to sleep at night, and it just has totally disrupted my pattern and routine at home, and I'm not productive.
Yeah.
So I know I need to change that. So this has been very helpful.
Yeah. So let's take it a stage further, Christine. What's your first step that you're going to do?
I'm going to set my alarm earlier.
Okay. Good. Good. And then notice if you get into a pattern with that, and then think, okay, what can I do differently again to move towards that towards wall? What is one step that I can shift and change? Because this one isn't working for me.
Yeah.
And I'll give an example for everyone here. Several years ago, I was training to run a warrior dash, and I wanted to run every day. But I was really excited, and I'm like, okay, but I realized if I ran every day for an hour, that would last maybe 2 weeks, and then I wouldn't do it anymore. So you have to, when you're taking that one step, you have to take a realistic step. So for me, it was running 10 minutes every day. My daughter would get on the bus, I wouldn't walk back into my house, and I just start running for 10 minutes. And I was actually able to sustain that. So it's figuring out what works for you. So you may have really high expectations, and I'm going to get up at 5 in the morning, and you realize that's not working. And so shifting to a time that maybe not as early as you want it to be, but you know you're going to be successful at it. And once you change that neurology and then switch it. So everybody's different. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Anyone else? Have any questions or things that you noticed?
I do, Marilyn.
Yes.
I am finding that I feel inundated with all these emails and things coming through Messenger and everything. And I've gotten to the point where I don't want to see them anymore. All these jokes and smiles of the day. And it's just people wanting to make you happy, but I'm just deleting everything. I don't want to be bothered. Is that normal?
Yeah. Yes. So what I've done, so tools that I've done to help with that, because there is a lot that comes in, is say it's on Messenger, you can actually click it where you don't get the notifications. So I still want to be in the group, and I can go back to it if I want to look at it. But now I'm not being inundated, because my phone was literally ping, 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 ping. I was like, oh my God. So just setting up filters to set your boundaries. And it's just simply setting boundaries for what works for you. So in your email, you can also set up filters where it goes direct. If you set up, say, a file folder for, I'll use example, Lavender Lane. I have a file folder for Lavender Lane. And if I didn't want to see those emails, I do want to see those emails. But if I don't want to, I can set it up so it automatically dumps into that folder. And then if I want to see it, I can go in there and look at it. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all it is it's about setting up a new strategy of how to set up your boundaries. And that's a boundary for you right now, so that you can come back to it if you want to. And if you don't want it, just simply delete them, in the sense that get them to take you off of your mailing list, so that you don't get those anymore.
Okay, and that's, I didn't want to take anybody off my mailing list or stop anybody or, you know, tell them don't do this anymore, because I appreciate that they're thinking of me, but
Yes.
yeah.
So yeah, simply set up those filters. Let it dump into that folder, and then if you want to go back and look at it, go back and look at it, and then it's not congesting up your main inbox.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I've seen that on Facebook as well, where some people are like, just don't like my comment back. And it's like, I don't think you understand how much we're being inundated right now. That takes energy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Good. Anyone else want to share, or share what you've learned, what you noticed? Was it helpful?
Yes.
Yes, good. Good. All right. So Christine, why don't we go ahead and stop recording, or pause it?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.